freedom, purpose, a life that matters. These are what people search for their entire existence. Most never find them because they never took 3 hours to design the next 30 years. Right now, you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to another decade of drifting, reacting, and wondering where the time went. The other path leads to intentional growth, clear direction, and a future you built on purpose. 3 focused hours can separate you from wasted potential and guide you toward the life you've always wanted, but never committed to creating. The difference between people who transform their lives and people who just survive is simple. The successful ones sat down and made a plan. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They didn't hope things would work out. They invested time now to design their tomorrow. Your next 30 years are being shaped by what you do today, whether you participate in that process or not. If you are ready to stop drifting and start building the future you actually deserve, then stay with me because we're about to change everything. Number 1, invest 3 focused hours to design your future. Let me tell you something that most people never figure out until it is too late. 3 hours can change everything. Not 3 hours of watching television, not 3 hours scrolling through your phone pretending you are busy. I am talking about 3 hours of serious, focused work on your future. 3 hours where you sit down with a pen and paper and actually design the next 30 years of your life. Most people spend more time planning a vacation than they spend planning their entire future. They'll research hotels for weeks. They'll compare prices. They'll read reviews. But when it comes to their own life, they just wing it. They wake up every day and react to whatever comes their way. That is not living. That is existing. And there is a massive difference between the two. Here's what I've learned after decades of studying success and watching people either make it or miss it completely. The difference isn't talent. It is not even opportunity. The difference is intentionality. Successful people design their lives on purpose. They sit down and decide what they want. They write it down. They make a plan. And then they work that plan every single day. The struggling folks never do this. They keep waiting for life to get better. They keep hoping something magical will happen. They keep believing that someday things will just fall into place. But life doesn't work that way. Life rewards the planners. Life rewards the people who take responsibility for their own future. Now I want you to think about something for a moment. Where will you be in 30 years if you keep doing exactly what you are doing right now? If nothing changes, if you don't learn anything new, if you don't start any new habits, if you don't set any goals, where will you end up? Most people don't want to answer that question because the answer scares them. They know deep down that their current path isn't leading anywhere good. They know they're drifting, but they don't want to face it. So they distract themselves. They stay busy with meaningless activities. They fill their time with noise so they don't have to think about the silence of their wasted potential. Let me give you some real perspective here. 30 years sounds like a long time when you are young, but it goes by faster than you think. I've watched 30 years pass. I've seen people start with nothing and build empires. I've also seen people with everything lose it all because they didn't have a plan. Time is going to pass whether you use it or waste it. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be intentional? Are you going to invest 3 hours right now to map out your future? Or are you going to keep drifting and hope for the best? Here is what those 3 hours should look like. You need to get quiet. You need to eliminate distractions. Turn off your phone. Close your laptop. Find a place where you can think clearly. Then you need to ask yourself some serious questions. What do I really want? Not what my parents want. Not what society expects. Not what looks good on social media. What do I actually want for my life? This is harder than it sounds because most people have never given themselves permission to dream. They've been told what to want for so long that they don't even know their own desires anymore. Once you know what you want, you need to get specific. Vague goals produce vague results. Saying you want to be successful means nothing. Success in what area? By when? What does it look like? How will you know when you've achieved it? You need dates. You need clear milestones. If you want financial freedom, what is the exact amount of money you need? If you want a better relationship, what specific qualities are you looking for? If you want to be healthier, what is your target weight or fitness level? Details matter because details create clarity and clarity creates action. Then you need to break it down. 30 years is overwhelming. Nobody can plan 30 years in detail, but you can plan the next 5 years. You can definitely plan the next year, and you can absolutely plan the next 90 days. Start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be in 30 years? Now work backwards. What needs to happen in 20 years to make that possible? What about 10 years, 5 years, 1 year? When you break it down like this, the impossible becomes possible. The overwhelming becomes manageable. You start to see a path forward. Here's something most people miss. You also need to identify what you are willing to give up. Every yes to something is a no to something else. If you want to build a business, you might have to give up some leisure time. If you want to get in shape, you might have to give up certain foods. If you want to learn a new skill, you might have to give up watching hours of television every night. Success requires sacrifice. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to trade for the future you want? Most people want the results, but they're not willing to pay the price. They want the destination, but they don't want to take the journey. You also need to think about who you need to become. Your current self created your current results. If you want different results, you need to become a different person. What skills do you need to develop? What habits do you need to build? What behaviors do you need to change? Personal development isn't optional if you want a better life. You can't stay the same and expect different outcomes. That is insanity. You need to grow. You need to evolve. You need to become the person who naturally achieves the goals you've set. Let me tell you what happens when you don't invest these 3 hours. You drift. You react, you survive, but you don't thrive. You get to the end of your life and realize you never lived on your own terms. You spent decades doing what other people wanted. You chased goals that didn't matter. You wasted time on things that didn't move you forward. And the saddest part is it didn't have to be that way. You had the same 24 hours as everyone else. You had the same opportunity to sit down and design your life, but you didn't do it. You were too busy, too distracted, too afraid, and now it is too late. But here is the good news. If you are reading this right now, it is not too late for you. You still have time. You can still make the change. You can still invest 3 hours to design your future. Will it be easy? Will it be comfortable? Facing yourself in your current reality is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it is also one of the most important. Because once you have a clear vision of where you are going, everything changes. You wake up with purpose. You make better decisions. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You start investing in things that do. Think about the people you admire, the ones who have built something meaningful, the ones who live with intention and purpose. Do you think they just stumbled into that life? Do you think it happened by accident? They sat down at some point and designed it. They invested the time to figure out what they wanted. They made a plan, they committed to it, and they executed it day after day after day. That is the difference between them and everyone else. They were willing to do what others weren't. They were willing to invest 3 hours to design the next 30 years. So here's my challenge to you. Stop reading this and go do it. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you have all the answers. You'll never have all the answers, but you can start. You can grab a pen and paper right now. You can find a quiet place. You can ask yourself the hard questions. You can start mapping out your future. 3 hours. That is all I'm asking. 3 hours to potentially change the entire trajectory of your life. Is your future worth 3 hours? I think it is. The question is, do you think it is? Because if you don't invest this time now, you'll pay for it later. You'll pay for it with regret. You'll pay for it with missed opportunities. You'll pay for it with a life that could have been so much more. The choice is yours. The time is now. 3 hours for the next 30 years. Make the investment. Number 2, small decisions today shape the next 30 years. Every choice you make right now is building your future, whether you realize it or not. The alarm goes off in the morning and you hit snooze. That is a decision. You walk past the gym and head straight to the couch. That is a decision. You spend your evening watching videos instead of reading a book. That is a decision. These seem like tiny choices that don't matter much in the moment. But here is what most people never understand. Small decisions compound over time, just like money compounds in a bank account. Every little choice you make today is either adding to your future success or subtracting from it. There is no neutral ground. You are either moving forward or you are sliding backward. Let me break this down in a way that makes it crystal clear. If you read just 10 pages of a good book every single day, that doesn't sound like much. 10 pages takes maybe 15 minutes. Most people spend more time than that scrolling through social media without even thinking about it. But if you read 10 pages a day for 30 years, do you know how many books you'll finish? Over 500 books. Think about the knowledge in 500 books. Think about how that information would transform your thinking. Think about the opportunities you'd recognize because your mind is trained to see them. Now compare that to the person who watches television for 3 hours every night. Instead, same amount of time in their day, completely different results 30 years later. Here is what I want you to understand about how decisions work. Your brain is making thousands of choices every day, and most of them happen automatically. You've trained your brain through repetition. If you always choose the easy path, your brain starts automatically looking for the easy path. If you always choose comfort over growth, your brain gets wired for comfort. This is why some people seem to naturally make good decisions, and others seem to constantly sabotage themselves. It is not luck. It is programming. You can start making different small decisions, and over time, those decisions become automatic. Think about your health for a minute. You are not going to have a heart attack because you ate one bad meal. One cheeseburger and fries isn't going to kill you. But if you choose that meal every single day for 30 years, your body will pay the price. On the other hand, one salad isn't going to make you healthy. One workout isn't going to transform your body. But if you choose the salad most days and you exercise regularly for 30 years, you'll be in the top percentage of healthy people your age. The decision today seems small. The compound effect over 3 decades is massive. Now let's talk about money, because this is where small decisions really add up in ways people can see and measure. Buying a coffee every morning doesn't seem like a big deal. It is $5. You work hard and you deserve it. But $5 a day is $35 a week. That is over $1,800 a year. Over 30 years, that is $54,000 just on coffee. Now imagine if you made that coffee at home for 50 cents and invested the difference. With compound interest over 30 years, you'd have well over 100,000. Life-changing difference in the outcome, but money is just one example. Your relationships are shaped by small decisions too. Choosing to really listen when someone talks to you instead of looking at your phone. Deciding to say thank you and mean it instead of just mumbling it automatically. Picking up the phone to call someone instead of sending a quick text. These tiny decisions build trust over time. They create deep connections. 30 years of small, thoughtful decisions in your relationships means you'll have people who truly care about you. 30 years of taking people for granted means you'll end up isolated and alone. Same amount of time, different choices, completely different quality of life. Here is something I've noticed after years of watching people succeed and fail. The people who struggle the most are always looking for the big break. They want the viral moment. They want someone to discover them and hand them success. Meanwhile, they're ignoring the small decisions right in front of them. They stay up too late. They eat poorly. They don't read. They don't learn new skills. They don't save money. They damage their relationships. And then they wonder why life is so hard. They think they're unlucky. But luck has nothing to do with it. They're getting exactly the results their small daily decisions have earned them. The successful people understand something different. They know big results come from small, consistent actions repeated over long periods of time. They don't need the big break because they're building their success, one decision at a time. They choose to learn something new every day. They choose to treat people with respect. They choose to save a portion of their income. They choose to exercise even when they don't feel like it. They choose to do the hard thing now, so life gets easier later. These decisions don't make headlines. Nobody gives them awards for reading 10 pages or saving $10. But 30 years later, the results speak for themselves. Let me give you a different way to think about this. Imagine you are steering a ship across the ocean. If you change your direction by just 1 degree, it doesn't look like much at first. You are still headed generally the same way. But if you keep going in that slightly different direction for long enough, you'll end up in a completely different country. Your daily decisions are like that 1 degree shift. Waking up 30 minutes earlier doesn't seem significant today, but 30 minutes a day is over 180 hours a year. That is over 5,000 hours in 30 years. What could you build with 5,000 extra hours? The problem is most people can't see the connection between today's choices and tomorrow's results. The gap is too big. The time frame is too long. So they make the comfortable choice right now and tell themselves it doesn't matter. They'll start tomorrow. They'll get serious next week. They'll make changes after the holidays. But tomorrow never comes because they keep choosing comfort over progress. And the years slip by. 5 years becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. And suddenly they look around and realize they're nowhere near where they wanted to be. Here is what you need to do differently. Start paying attention to your small decisions. Notice when you are choosing the easy path. Catch yourself making the comfortable choice instead of the right choice. And then ask yourself a simple question. If I make this same decision every day for 30 years, where will I end up? If the answer doesn't excite you, make a different choice. Choose the harder option. Choose growth over comfort. Choose investment over consumption. Choose discipline over distraction. I want to be clear about something. I am not saying you can never relax. I am not saying you have to be perfect with every decision. That is not realistic, and it is not sustainable. What I am saying is you need to be intentional about your choices. You need to understand that decisions have consequences that multiply over time. And you need to make sure that more of your decisions are pointing you toward the life you want instead of away from it. Think about the person you want to be in 30 years. What does that version of you look like? How do they spend their time? What habits do they have? What skills have they developed? Now, ask yourself what small decisions that person would make today. They probably wouldn't hit snooze 5 times. They probably wouldn't waste hours on meaningless entertainment. They probably wouldn't put off important conversations. They probably wouldn't ignore their health. Start making the decisions that future version of you would make, and you'll become that person. The beautiful thing about small decisions is you get to make new ones every single day. If you've been making poor choices up until now, you can change that starting today. Your past doesn't have to define your future. Every morning you wake up with a fresh opportunity to choose differently, to choose better, to choose in alignment with the life you actually want instead of just accepting whatever comes your way. The power is completely in your hands. Nobody else controls your small daily decisions. That is your domain. That is where you build your future. I've seen people transform their entire lives by changing just a few key decisions. They started reading instead of scrolling. They started saving instead of spending everything. They started exercising instead of making excuses. They started having real conversations instead of surface-level small talk. These small shifts created momentum. One good decision made the next good decision easier. And over time, their whole life changed direction. Not because of one big dramatic moment, but because of thousands of small intentional choices compounded over years. Your life 30 years from now is being created by the decisions you are making right this minute. Not the decisions you wish you would make. Not the decisions you plan to make someday. The actual choices you are making today, that is either exciting or terrifying, depending on what those choices look like. But either way, it is the truth. Small decisions today shape the next 30 years. Make sure your decisions are shaping the future you actually want to live in. Number 3, create a clear vision before time slips away. Time doesn't wait for anyone to figure out what they want. It keeps moving, whether you have a plan or not. Every single day that passes without a clear vision is a day you are wandering instead of walking with purpose. I've watched too many people reach their 40s and 50s only to realize they never decided what they were building toward. They worked hard. They stayed busy. They checked off tasks every day. But they never stopped to ask themselves where all that effort was supposed to lead. And now, they're standing in the middle of a life they never consciously chose. They look around and think this can't be it. There has to be more than this. And you know what the tragedy is? There could have been more, but they never created the vision that would have guided them there. Most people walk through life reacting to circumstances instead of creating them. Something happens and they respond. A job opens up and they take it. Someone asks them out and they date them. An opportunity appears and they grab it without thinking about whether it fits into any larger picture. This is how you end up 20 years into a career you never wanted. This is how you end up in relationships that drain you instead of energize you. This is how you end up living in a city you don't like, doing work that doesn't matter, surrounded by people who don't understand you. None of it was a conscious choice. It all just happened while you were too busy to notice. Here is what a clear vision does for you. It acts like a filter for everything that comes your way. When you know exactly what you are building, you can instantly recognize whether something moves you closer to that vision or further away from it. Someone offers you a job that pays well but takes you off your path. With a clear vision, you can say no without hesitation. An opportunity appears that looks exciting but doesn't align with where you are headed. You can pass on it without regret because you know it is a distraction. Without a vision, everything looks like it might be the right move. With a vision, you have clarity. You have direction. You have the ability to make decisions quickly and confidently. Let me tell you what happens when you don't create this vision early. You spend years building someone else's dream instead of your own. You work for companies that use your talent to make their owners wealthy while you stay stuck at the same income level. You spend your energy on projects that don't excite you because you never decided what would excite you. You say yes to things you should say no to because you don't have a clear picture of what deserves your yes. And the worst part is you can't get those years back. You can't rewind time and make different choices. Once it is gone forever. I want you to think about the difference between wandering and walking with intention. When you wander, you might stumble onto something good, occasionally. You might have a few wins here and there, but you are leaving your future up to chance. When you walk with intention, every step is deliberate. Every choice is calculated. Every action is moving you closer to a specific destination. The person who wanders might get lucky. The person with a vision doesn't need luck because they're engineering their results through focused, consistent effort over time. Creating a vision isn't about predicting the future perfectly. Nobody can do that. Life will throw curveballs at you no matter how well you plan. But having a vision means you know what you are aiming for, even when circumstances change. It means you have a target that helps you recalibrate when things go wrong. Without that target, you are just drifting from one situation to the next, hoping things work out. With that target, you can adjust your approach, but keep moving in the right general direction. Here's how you actually created a vision that works. You need to get specific about what you want in every major area of your life. What does your ideal career look like? Not just the title or the salary, but the actual day-to-day work you are doing. What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? Not just anyone who is nice, but people who challenge you and push you to grow. What does your health and energy level look like? Not just avoiding sickness, but feeling strong and capable. What kind of impact do you want to have on the world around you? Not just getting by, but leaving things better than you found them. Most people have never asked themselves these questions seriously. They've thought about them in passing. They've had vague wishes and general hopes, but they've never sat down and really defined what they want with enough detail that they could recognize it if they saw it. This is why their vision is fuzzy. This is why they can't make clear decisions. You can't hit a target you can't see. You need to paint the picture so clearly in your mind that you could describe it to someone else and they would understand exactly what you are building toward. The vision also needs to be compelling enough to pull you through the hard times. Because there will be hard times. There will be days when you don't want to do the work. There will be moments when quitting seems easier than continuing. If your vision doesn't excite you deeply, you won't push through those moments. You'll give up and settle for less. Your vision has to matter to you more than your comfort. It has to be important enough that you are willing to sacrifice immediate pleasure for long-term fulfillment. Now, here is something critical that most people miss. Your vision should scare you a little bit. If it is completely comfortable and easy to imagine yourself achieving it, you are not thinking big enough. A real vision pushes you beyond your current capabilities. It requires you to become someone you are not yet. It demands growth and change and uncomfortable expansion. This is actually a good thing because it means you'll be constantly developing new skills and abilities. You won't stay stagnant. You'll be forced to evolve. Let me give you some perspective on timing because this matters more than you think. If you are in your 20s and you don't have a clear vision yet, you still have time, but you are burning through it faster than you realize. Every year without direction is a year of momentum lost. If you are in your 30s and you haven't created this vision, you need to do it immediately. You are approaching the point where recovery becomes much harder. If you are in your 40s or beyond and you've been drifting, it is not too late, but you have to be honest about how much time you've already spent without intention. The younger you are when you create this vision, the more time you have to build it. But regardless of your age, the best time to start is right now. You can always make more money. You can always meet new people. You can always learn new skills, but you cannot create more time. Every day that passes is gone permanently. This is why creating your vision before time slips away is so urgent. Not next month, not after you finish this project, not when things calm down. Things will never calm down. Life will always be busy. There will always be distract. You have to make this a priority right now, or it will never happen. Think about where you'll be in 5 years. If you keep operating without a clear vision, you'll probably be in roughly the same place you are now. Maybe a little older, maybe a little more tired, maybe a little more frustrated, but fundamentally the same. Now imagine where you could be in 5 years if you created a compelling vision today and started working toward it with focus and discipline. You could be living a completely different life, doing work you love, surrounded by people who inspire you, making the kind of impact you've always wanted to make. The difference between these two futures is the vision you create or don't create today. I've seen people waste decades because they never took the time to get clear on what they wanted. They kept telling themselves they'd figure it out eventually. They kept thinking clarity would come to them naturally. But it doesn't work that way. Clarity comes from action. It comes from sitting down and doing the hard work of defining what matters to you. It comes from making tough choices about what you'll pursue and what you'll let go of. Nobody is going to do this for you. Your parents can't create your vision. Your spouse can't create it. Your boss definitely can't create it. This is your responsibility and yours alone. Here's what I want you to understand about vision and regret. When people get to the end of their lives, they don't regret the things they tried and failed at. They regret the things they never tried because they never got clear on what they wanted. They regret the years they spent drifting. They regret not having the courage to define their own path. They regret letting time slip away while they waited for permission or perfect conditions or more certainty. Don't be that person. Don't let yourself get to the end and realize you never even tried to build the life you actually wanted. Your vision is the foundation for everything else. Without it, you can't make good decisions about your career. You can't choose the right relationships. You can't invest your time wisely. You can't say no to distractions. Everything becomes harder when you don't have that North Star guiding you. But when you have a clear, compelling vision, everything gets easier. Not because the work is less demanding, but because you know why you are doing it. You have a reason to push through the difficulty. You have something worth building toward. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to create your vision. Stop thinking you need more information or more experience or more clarity before you can begin. You create clarity by making decisions. You gain experience by taking action. All you have is right now, and right now is slipping away while you hesitate. Grab a piece of paper. Start writing. What do you want your life to look like in 10 years? In 20 years? In 30 years? Get specific. Get detailed. Get honest with yourself about what would actually fulfill you, and then commit to building that vision. One decision and one action at a time, starting today. Number 4. Write down goals that will guide your journey. A goal that lives only in your head is nothing more than a wish that will probably never come true. You can think about what you want all day long. You can imagine your ideal future. You can dream about success. But until you take that pen and write it down on paper, you haven't truly committed to anything. There is something powerful that happens when you move a goal from your mind to physical reality. It becomes real in a way that thoughts never are. It becomes measurable. It becomes something you can track and work toward. It becomes something that holds you accountable on days when motivation fades and discipline is all you have left. Most people skip this critical step and then wonder why their lives never change. They have ideas and wishes and hopes, but they don't have written goals that guide their daily actions. Here is what you need to understand about written goals. They function as a navigation system for your life. When you face a decision about how to spend your time or money or energy, you can ask yourself a simple question. Does this move me closer to my written goals or further away? If it moves you closer, you do it. If it moves you further away, you don't. This clarity eliminates hours of confusion and second guessing. Without written goals, every option, you have no objective standard to measure decisions against. You end up making choices based on how you feel in the moment, or what seems easiest or what other people think you should do. This is why people without written goals drift, while people with clear written goals make consistent progress. Let me tell you why most people resist writing down their goals. It feels risky because once it is written down, you can fail in a concrete, measurable way. If you just keep your goals vague and in your head, you can always tell yourself you are making progress. You can move the target whenever you want. You can make excuses about why things didn't work out. But when you write down a specific goal with a deadline, you create accountability. You'll either hit that goal or you won't. There is no hiding from the result. This scares people who are more comfortable with vague possibilities than concrete commitments. But this accountability is exactly what makes written goals so powerful. The way you write your goals matters tremendously. Saying you want to be successful is useless. What does success mean? How will you know when you've achieved it? What specific outcome are you aiming for? Your goals need to be clear enough that a stranger could read them and understand exactly what you are trying to accomplish. Instead of wanting to be healthy, write down that you want to weigh a specific amount, or run a specific distance, or complete a specific number of workouts per week. Instead of wanting to be wealthy, write down the exact amount of money you want to earn or save or invest. Specificity transforms vague wishes into actionable targets. Your written goals also need deadlines. A goal without a deadline is just a dream you might get to someday. Deadlines create urgency. They force you to take action. Now, instead of putting things off indefinitely, when you write down that you want to save $50,000 by December 31st of next year, you've created a specific target with a time constraint. Now you can work backwards to figure out how much you need to save each month. You can track whether you are on pace or falling behind. You can make adjustments throughout the year. The deadline makes the goal real and actionable instead of abstract and eventual. Here is a system for writing goals that actually work. Start with your long-term vision for 30 years from now. What do you want your life to look like? Now break that down into 10-year goals. What needs to happen in 10 years to make that 30-year vision possible? Then break it down further into 5-year goals, then 3 years, then 1 year, then 6 months, then this month, then this week. When you reverse engineer your long-term vision into smaller time frames, you create a roadmap of goals that guide you from where you are today to where you want to be decades from now. Each smaller goal is a stepping stone toward the bigger goals. Most people make the mistake of only writing down outcome goals. They write down that they want to make a certain amount of money or reach a certain weight or achieve a certain position. But outcome goals alone aren't enough because you don't always have complete control over outcomes. What you do have control over are your actions. This is why you also need process goals. Process goals are about the behaviors and habits you'll commit to regardless of immediate results. If your outcome goal is to lose 30 pounds, your process goals might be to exercise 5 times per week and eat vegetables with every meal and sleep 7 hours per night. You can control these actions even when you can't control exactly how fast the weight comes off. Let me explain why writing goals down on paper beats typing them into your phone or computer. When you physically write something by hand, you engage different parts of your brain. The act of writing forces you to slow down and really think about what you are committing to. It creates a stronger mental connection than typing. There is also something about seeing your own handwriting that makes goals feel more personal and binding. I recommend using a dedicated notebook just for goals. Write them at the front of the notebook where you can review them regularly. Then use the rest of the notebook to track your progress and make notes about what is working and what needs adjustment. Your written goals should live somewhere. You'll see them every single day, not hidden in a drawer, not buried in a file on your computer. Some people post their goals on their bathroom mirror. Others keep them on their desk. Some put them in their wallet. Find a system that works for you, but make sure your goals stay in front of your eyes regularly. Out of sight truly means out of mind when it comes to goals. If you only look at your goals once, when you write them, they won't influence your daily behavior. You need constant reinforcement to keep them guiding your decisions. Here is what happens when you actually write down clear, specific goals with deadlines and review them daily. Your brain starts working on them subconsciously. You begin noticing opportunities that align with your goals that you would have missed before. You make different choices because you have a clear standard to measure against. You feel more motivated because you can track concrete progress. You waste less time on activities that don't support your goals. Your whole life becomes more focused and intentional. The simple act of writing goals down creates a cascade of positive changes that compound over time. Think about the different areas of your life that need written goals. Your career deserves specific goals about skills to develop, positions to reach, or income to earn. Your finances need goals around saving, investing, and debt elimination with exact numbers and dates. Your health requires goals about weight, fitness levels, or habits. Your relationships benefit from goals about quality time spent or difficult conversations had or ways you'll serve the people you care about. Your personal growth needs goals related to books read, courses taken, or new experiences pursued. Every important area of your life deserves at least one clear written goal. Let me address a common mistake people make with written goals. They write them down once at the beginning of the year and then never look at them again. They think the act of writing is enough. It is not. Your goals need regular review and adjustment. I recommend reviewing your goals every single morning as part of your routine. This keeps them fresh in your mind. It reminds you what you are working toward. It helps you plan your day around activities that support your goals. Then do a deeper review weekly, where you assess your progress, celebrate wins, and identify obstacles that need attention. Monthly reviews allow you to make larger adjustments to your strategy if something isn't working. Your written goals also need to evolve as you do. What mattered to you 5 years ago might not matter anymore. What seemed important when you wrote your goals 6 months ago might not align with your current values. That is okay. Goals aren't prison sentences. They're tools to guide you. When a goal no longer serves you, change it. But change it intentionally by writing down the new goal, not by just abandoning the old one without replacement. The point is to always have clear written targets guiding you forward, even if those targets shift over time as you grow and learn more about yourself. Here's something powerful about written goals that most people never experience. When you achieve a goal you've written down, the satisfaction is much deeper than achieving something you just thought about. You have written proof that you set a target and hit it. You can look back at what you wrote months or years ago and see concrete evidence of your growth and capability. This builds confidence that carries over into setting bigger goals. Each achieved written goal becomes proof that you can do hard things. This evidence accumulates and transforms how you see yourself. You become someone who sets goals and achieves them rather than someone who just wishes things were different. Think about where you want to be 1 year from today. Now imagine you could look back from that future date and see that you had accomplished exactly what you wanted. What would need to be written down today to make that future real? What specific measurable goals with clear deadlines would guide you from here to there? Stop imagining and start writing. Get paper and pen right now. Write down 3 goals that would transform your life if you achieved them in the next 12 months. Make them specific. Give them deadlines. Include the actions you'll take to reach them. This simple act of writing could be the turning point between another year of drifting and a year of genuine progress toward the life you actually want. Written goals turn invisible dreams into visible targets. They transform vague wishes into concrete plans. They give you a standard to measure your days against. They create accountability that pushes you forward when feelings fail. They build a record of growth and achievement that proves to you that change is possible. Your future is too important to leave to chance and hope. Write down your goals. Review them daily. Adjust them when needed. And let them guide your journey from where you are to where you deserve to be. Number 5, build habits now that compound into lasting success. Success isn't built in a single moment of brilliance or one burst of intense effort. It is built through what you do repeatedly when nobody is watching and when the results aren't immediately visible. The habits you establish today are quietly constructing the person you'll become 30 years from now. Most people underestimate the power of daily routines because the effects aren't dramatic enough to notice right away. You don't see your life transform after one workout. You don't become wealthy after saving money one time. You don't gain wisdom from reading a single chapter, but do these things consistently for years, and the transformation is undeniable. The problem is most people give up before the compounding effect kicks in because they want instant results in a world that rewards patient consistency. Let me explain how habits actually work in your brain and why they're so powerful. Every time you repeat an action, your brain creates a neural pathway. The first time you do something new, it requires conscious effort and decision making. Your brain has to figure out what to do. But the more times you repeat that action, the stronger the neural pathway becomes, until eventually the behavior happens automatically without you thinking about it. This is why brushing your teeth doesn't require willpower anymore. You've done it thousands of times, and your brain just executes the routine. The same process works for any habit, whether positive or negative. Your brain doesn't judge whether the habit is good for you. It just automates whatever you do repeatedly. Here is where most people make a critical mistake. They try to build too many new habits at once, and they overwhelm themselves. They decide on January 1st that they're going to wake up early and exercise and eat healthy and read every day and meditate and journal and learn a new skill. Within 2 weeks, they've quit everything because it is too much change all at once. Your brain resists dramatic shifts. It wants stability and predictability. If you try to overhaul your entire life overnight, your brain will fight you every step of the way. The smarter approach is to build one new habit at a time and make it so easy you can't fail. Once that habit is truly automatic, then you add the next one. Think about the math of small habits over long periods. If you get just 1% better every single day, you won't notice much difference at first. After a month, you are barely ahead of where you started. But if you keep going for a year, you are 37 times better than when you began. After 5 years, the numbers become almost impossible to calculate. This is the compound effect in action. It is why the person who exercises moderately but consistently will always be healthier than the person who does intense workouts sporadically. It is why the person who saves a little money every single paycheck will build more wealth than someone who tries to save big amounts occasionally. Consistency beats intensity every single time over the long run. Now let's talk about which habits actually matter, because not all habits are created equal. Some habits create a ripple effect that improves multiple areas of your life simultaneously. I call these keystone habits. When you build a keystone habit, it makes other positive habits easier to maintain. For example, getting enough quality sleep affects everything else. When you sleep well, you have more energy to exercise. You make better food choices because your willpower isn't depleted. You think more clearly, so you are more productive at work. You are more patient with people, so your relationships improve. One habit of prioritizing sleep creates positive effects across your entire life. Exercise is another keystone habit that transforms more than just your physical health. When you work out regularly, you prove to yourself that you can commit to something difficult. That builds confidence that spills over into other areas. You start believing you can tackle other challenges because you've already shown yourself you have discipline. Physical activity also reduces stress and improves mental clarity, so you make better decisions throughout the day. People who exercise consistently tend to eat better, not because they're trying harder, but because their body starts craving healthier fuel. One habit creates a cascade of improvements. Reading is a keystone habit that compounds knowledge over time in ways that are almost magical. When you read every day, you are constantly exposing yourself to new ideas and different perspectives. You start making connections between concepts from different books. You develop frameworks for understanding how the world works. Over years, this accumulated knowledge gives you advantages that people who don't read simply cannot access. You see opportunities others miss. You avoid mistakes others make. You understand people better. You communicate more effectively, all from the simple habit of reading a little bit every single day. Here is what you need to understand about habit formation. The beginning is always the hardest part. Your brain is working against you because it wants to stick with familiar patterns. You have to use willpower and conscious effort to override your default setting. This is exhausting and uncomfortable. Most people quit during this phase because they think it is always going to be this hard. But it is not. After about 60 to 90 days of consistent repetition, the habit starts becoming automatic. Your brain accepts this new pattern as normal. The resistance fades. What used to require willpower now happens naturally. You just have to push through that difficult initial period. The key to getting through the hard beginning is to remove as much friction as possible. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put your shoes right next to your bed. Make it so easy to start that you'd feel silly not doing it. If you want to read more, keep a book on your nightstand and commit to reading just 2 pages before you turn off the light. The goal isn't to read for an hour. The goal is to make the habit so simple that you do it even on your worst days. Once the habit is established, you can increase the intensity. But first, you have to make it stick. You also need to track your habits, because what gets measured gets managed. Get a calendar and put a big X on every day you complete your habit. After a few weeks, you'll have a chain of X marks, and you won't want to break the chain. This simple visual reminder creates accountability. You can see your progress. You can see your consistency. And on days when you don't feel like doing the work, you'll do it anyway, because you don't want to break your streak. This technique works because it makes the invisible visible. You can actually see the compound effect building day by day. Let me tell you what happens when you ignore habit building. You rely on motivation and willpower to get things done. Some days you feel motivated, so you do great work. Other days you don't feel like it, so you do nothing. Your results become inconsistent and unpredictable. You never build momentum because you are constantly starting and stopping. Compare this to someone with strong habits. They do the work whether they feel like it or not because their habits carry them through. They don't need motivation because their routines are automatic. Over time, this consistent effort creates massive results, while the motivation-dependent person is still struggling to get started. Think about successful people you admire. I guarantee they have strong daily habits that support their success. The writer writes every morning regardless of inspiration. The athlete trains on a schedule not based on how they feel. The business builder works on their company during specific hours each day. Their success looks effortless from the outside, but it is built on disciplined habits repeated thousands of times. They're not more talented than everyone else. They're not luckier. They just built better systems through consistent habits that compound over years into extraordinary results. Bad habits compound too, and this is what most people don't realize until it is too late. Every cigarette damages your lungs a tiny bit. One cigarette won't kill you, but 30 years of daily smoking creates severe health problems. Every hour spent watching mindless television is an hour not invested in learning, or building, or creating. One evening doesn't matter much, but 30 years of wasted evenings adds up to a wasted life. Every dollar spent on things you don't need is a dollar that could have been invested. One purchase won't bankrupt you, but 30 years of poor spending habits keeps you broke while others build wealth. The beauty of understanding compound habits is that you can change your trajectory starting right now. Your past habits got you to where you are today. Your current habits are creating your future. If you don't like where you are headed, you can change direction by changing your habits. It won't transform your life overnight. The results will be slow and subtle at first. But if you stay consistent, the compound effect will eventually create dramatic changes. 6 months from now, you'll be amazed at your progress. 3 years from now, you'll be unrecognizable. 30 years from now, you'll be living a completely different life. Here's my advice on building habits that last. Start with one habit that will have the biggest positive impact on your life. Make it so easy you can do it even on your worst day. Do it at the same time every day so it becomes part of your routine. Track it visually so you can see your consistency. Don't break the chain after 90 days when it feels automatic. Add another habit, build your life one habit at a time. Don't rush the process. Don't try to change everything at once. Just focus on getting a little better every single day through small, consistent actions that compound over time. The person you'll be in 30 years is being shaped by what you do today and tomorrow, and the day after that, not by what you do once when you feel inspired. By what you do repeatedly, whether you feel like it or not. Build the right habits now, and your future self will thank you. Ignore habit building and your future self will regret it. The choice is yours, but the time to start is today. Number 6, choose your direction before life chooses for you. Life has a way of making decisions for people who refuse to make decisions for themselves. If you don't choose what you want your career to be, you'll end up in whatever job pays the bills. If you don't choose the kind of person you want to spend your life with, you'll settle for whoever happens to be around. If you don't choose where you want to live, you'll stay wherever circumstances planted you. If you don't choose how you want to spend your time, other people will fill your schedule with their priorities. The world doesn't wait for you to figure things out. It keeps moving forward, and it will place you somewhere whether you participate in that decision or not. The question is whether you are going to actively choose your direction or passively accept whatever direction life pushes you toward. Here's the hard truth that most people avoid facing. Not choosing is still a choice. When you refuse to decide, you are choosing to let external forces control your life. You are choosing to be reactive instead of proactive. You are choosing to be a passenger instead of the driver. And passengers don't get to complain about the destination because they handed over control to someone else. I've watched countless people spend decades living lives they never wanted because they were too afraid or too lazy to make clear choices about their direction. They kept their options open. They stayed flexible. They waited to see what would happen. And what happened was they ended up somewhere they never intended to be. Making a clear choice about your direction requires courage because it means closing off other possibilities. When you commit to becoming excellent at one thing, you are accepting that you won't become excellent at 10 other things. When you choose to build your life in one city, you are giving up the chance to live in other places. When you commit to one career path, you are saying no to different careers. This feels scary to people who want to keep all their options available. But here's what they don't realize. Keeping all your options open means you never go deep enough in any direction to achieve real mastery or success. You stay surface level in everything instead of becoming exceptional at something. Think about how most people make decisions. They don't. They drift from one opportunity to the next based on what is convenient or what other people suggest. Someone offers them a job, so they take it without considering whether it moves them toward any meaningful goal. A relationship becomes available, so they pursue it without thinking about whether this person fits their vision for their life. An investment opportunity appears, so they jump in without evaluating whether it aligns with their financial strategy. This is how people end up 10 years down a path they never consciously chose, wondering how they got there. Let me give you a framework for choosing your direction intentionally. First, you need to understand what you actually value, not what your parents value, not what society says you should value. What matters to you personally when you strip away all the external expectations and social pressure? Do you value freedom more than security? Do you value impact more than income? Do you value creativity more than stability? Do you value relationships more than achievement? Your values should guide your direction. If you value freedom, but you are choosing a career that locks you into 60-hour work weeks, you are setting yourself up for misery. Once you know your values, you can evaluate potential directions against them. Does this career path align with what I value? Does this relationship support or conflict with my priorities? Does this location give me access to the things that matter most to me? Does this use of my time reflect what I say is important? Most people skip this evaluation process. They make choices based on what looks good to others, or what seems like the safe bet, or what requires the least immediate discomfort. Then they wonder why they feel unfulfilled even when they're successful by conventional standards. Choosing your direction also means being willing to go against the crowd. The default path that society lays out might not be the right path for you. Maybe everyone expects you to get a traditional job, but you want to start a business. Maybe your family wants you to stay in your hometown, but you need to move somewhere that offers better opportunities. Maybe your friends are all focused on making money, but you care more about making a difference. Following your own direction when it diverges from what others expect takes strength. You'll face criticism. You'll face doubt. You'll face people trying to pull you back to the familiar path. You have to be secure enough in your choice to keep moving forward anyway. Here's what I've observed about people who successfully choose their own direction. They make the decision early and they commit to it fully. They don't keep second-guessing themselves. They don't constantly wonder if they should have chosen differently. They pick a direction and they pour their energy into making that direction work. This commitment creates momentum, skills compound, networks develop, opportunities appear, all because they stayed focused on one clear direction long enough for results to materialize. Compare this to people who keep changing directions every few years. They never build enough momentum to break through. They're always starting over. The direction you choose doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. It has to be based on honest self-assessment about what you want and what you are willing to work for. Too many people wait for complete certainty before they commit to a direction. They want a guarantee that they're making the right choice. But that guarantee doesn't exist. You'll never have perfect information. You'll always have some doubt. The key is to make the best decision you can with the information available, and then commit to making that decision work through effort and persistence. Let me tell you what happens when you don't choose your direction intentionally. You end up living according to default settings, programmed by your upbringing and environment. You get a degree because that is what people do. You get a job in whatever field hired you. You get married because you reached a certain age and it seemed like time. You buy a house because that is what responsible adults do. You have kids because that is the next step. None of these choices are necessarily wrong, but if you are making them because of social programming rather than genuine desire, you are building someone else's life, not your own. Your direction should excite you enough that you are willing to face the challenges that come with it. Every path has obstacles. Every direction requires sacrifice. If you've chosen your direction authentically, you'll push through those obstacles because you care about where you are headed. If you are on a path someone else chose for you, you'll quit the moment things get difficult because you don't have a strong enough reason to continue. This is why so many people start projects and never finish them. They weren't pursuing their own direction. They were following what they thought they should do. Think about the different areas of life where you need to choose direction. Your professional development needs direction. Are you building toward leadership or mastery of a craft or entrepreneurship or something else entirely? Your financial life needs direction. Are you building wealth for early retirement, or to fund adventures, or to create generational impact? Your physical health needs direction. Are you training for performance or longevity or appearance? Your relationships need direction. Are you investing in a small circle of deep connections or a large network of diverse contacts? Each area requires clear choices about where you are headed. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Choosing a direction means accepting that you might be wrong. You might invest years going in one direction only to discover it is not what you thought it would be. This possibility paralyzes many people. They're so afraid of choosing wrong that they choose nothing. But making a choice and adjusting it later is always better than making no choice at all. Even if you discover your initial direction wasn't right, you've learned valuable information about what doesn't work for you. You've developed skills and experiences that transfer to new directions. Nothing is wasted if you are paying attention and learning. The people who end up with the most regret aren't the ones who chose a direction and it didn't work out. The people with the deepest regret are the ones who never chose at all. They let life happen to them. They stayed in jobs they hated because it was easier than finding something better. They stayed in relationships that drained them because starting over seemed too hard. They stayed in cities they didn't like because moving required too much effort. They spent their precious time on activities that didn't matter because they never decided what would matter. Decades pass and they realize they never actually lived. They existed, they survived. But they never took control and steered their life in a direction they consciously chose. Right now, you are at a crossroads whether you realize it or not. You can continue drifting and let circumstances determine where you end up. Or you can stop and make real decisions about your direction. Where do you want your career to be in 5 years? What kind of relationships do you want to invest in? What skills do you want to develop? What kind of lifestyle do you want to build? How do you want to spend your time? These aren't abstract questions to think about someday. These are urgent decisions that need answers now, because every day you delay is a day spent moving in whatever direction the current takes you. Choose your direction with intention. Choose based on your values, not other people's expectations. Choose something that excites you enough to push through inevitable challenges. Choose one clear path and commit to it long enough to see real results. And if you discover later that you need to adjust your direction, that is fine. At least you'll be making an active choice rather than passively accepting whatever life hands you. The power to choose your direction is the most important power you have. Use it now before life makes the choice for you, and you spend the rest of your years wishing you had taken control when you still had time. Number 7, plan your priorities or drift without meaningful purpose. Most people are incredibly busy, but remarkably unproductive. They fill their days with activity, but accomplish nothing that actually moves their life forward. They answer emails. They attend meetings. They scroll through social media. They run errands. They put out fires. They stay in motion from morning until night. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, they can't point to anything meaningful they've built or achieved. This is what happens when you live without planned priorities. You become reactive instead of intentional. You spend your time on whatever screams loudest for attention instead of what matters most, and years slip by while you stay busy accomplishing nothing of real significance. Here is what planning your priorities actually means. It means sitting down and deciding what deserves your time and energy based on what you are trying to build with your life. Not what other people think should be important. Not what is urgent right this second. What actually moves you closer to the future you are trying to create. Once you identify these true priorities, everything else becomes secondary. You protect time for your priorities the same way you'd protect something valuable from thieves. You say no to things that don't align with them. You ruthlessly eliminate activities that waste time without contributing to anything meaningful. This level of intentionality is rare. Most people have never done this exercise. They've never actually identified what their real priorities should be. Let me show you how to identify your true priorities in a way that cuts through all the noise. Imagine you only had 2 hours a day to work on building your future. Everything else is taken up by basic survival needs. What would you spend those 2 hours on? Would you spend them watching television, scrolling social media, gossiping with coworkers? Of course not. You'd spend them on the activities that create the biggest positive impact on your life. Maybe building a business, maybe learning high-value skills, maybe strengthening your most important relationships, maybe taking care of your health. These are your real priorities. Everything else is just filler that you allow into your life because you have extra time. The problem is most people don't treat their priorities like priorities. They say family is important, but they work 70 hours a week and barely see their kids. They say health matters, but they haven't exercised in months. They say they want financial freedom, but they spend money on junk instead of investing. They say personal growth is a priority, but they haven't read a book in years. There is a massive gap between what people claim to value and how they actually spend their time. Your calendar and your bank statement reveal your true priorities regardless of what you say matters to you. Planning your priorities means creating a hierarchy of what gets your time and attention. Not everything can be a top priority. That is just another way of saying nothing is actually prioritized. You need to rank the areas of your life honestly. Maybe right now building your career needs to be priority 1 because you are establishing yourself professionally. That might mean relationships and hobbies take a back seat temporarily. Or maybe you are at a stage where raising your children needs to be the top priority, and career advancement slows down for a few years. The key is being honest and intentional about these choices instead of trying to do everything and doing nothing well. Here is where most people struggle. They don't want to make these hard choices. They want to believe they can have it. All right, now they want perfect balance across every area of life simultaneously. But that is not how real success works. People who achieve extraordinary things in any area do it by making that area a clear priority for a period of time. They accept that other areas might not get equal attention. They're comfortable with imbalance when it is strategic and temporary. The people who insist on perfect balance usually achieve mediocrity in everything because they never focus deeply enough on anything. Let me give you a practical system for planning your priorities. Take out a piece of paper and divide it into 4 sections. Label them professional, financial, physical, and relational. Under each section, write the one big goal that would make the biggest difference in that area over the next year. Not 10 goals. 1 goal per area, 4 total. These become your priorities for the year. Everything you do should either directly support one of these 4 goals or be necessary for basic survival. If an activity doesn't fit into either category, you eliminate it. This simple filter helps you say no to the thousands of distractions that will try to pull you off course. Now, here is the crucial part that separates people who plan from people who achieve. You need to schedule time for your priorities before anything else claims that time. Most people schedule their priorities around their life. They fit in exercise if they have time after work. They work on their business idea if nothing else comes up. They spend quality time with family if they're not too tired. This backward approach guarantees your priorities get whatever scraps of time and energy are left after everything else. Successful people do it differently. They schedule their priorities first and fit everything else around them. They block time for exercise at 6 a.m. before the day gets crazy. They dedicate Saturday mornings to their side business before anyone can interrupt. They protect Friday evenings for family regardless of what else is happening. Think about how different your life would look if you actually lived according to planned priorities. You'd wake up each day knowing exactly what deserves your focus. You wouldn't waste time deciding what to work on or getting distracted by low-value activities. You'd make faster progress because your energy would be concentrated on things that matter. You'd feel more fulfilled because you'd be actively building the life you want instead of just reacting to demands. You'd have clarity about what to say yes to and what to decline. Your whole life would have direction and purpose instead of feeling scattered and chaotic. Without planned priorities, you drift wherever the current takes you. You work on whatever project your boss assigns. You attend whatever social events people invite you to. You consume whatever content the algorithm feeds you. You spend money on whatever catches your eye. You give your time to whoever asks for it. This is a recipe for reaching the end of your life and realizing you never actually lived according to your own values. You spent your precious time and energy on other people's priorities, while your own dreams stayed forever on the back burner. Let me address a common objection. People have to planning priorities. They say, life is unpredictable, and planning doesn't account for unexpected events. They're right that life is unpredictable. Emergencies happen, opportunities appear, circumstances change, but this is exactly why you need planned priorities. When unexpected things happen, you need a framework to evaluate them against. Does this emergency actually require my attention? Or is it just someone else's poor planning? Does this opportunity align with my priorities? Or is it an attractive distraction? Does this change in circumstances require me to adjust my priorities or just my tactics? Without clear priorities, you have no way to make these decisions quickly and confidently. Your priorities also need to be written down somewhere. You'll see them regularly, not buried in a notebook you never open, not saved on a computer file you forget exists, written on paper and posted where you'll see them every single day. Read them every morning. Ask yourself whether today's planned activities support these priorities. Make adjustments when you notice yourself drifting off course. This regular review keeps your priorities front of mind, so they actually influence your daily choices instead of being forgotten good intentions. Here is what I've noticed about people who successfully plan their priorities versus those who don't. The planners accomplish more in 5 years than the drifters accomplish in 20. not because they work harder or have more talent, because their effort is focused and cumulative. Every action builds on previous actions. Every day moves them closer to clear goals. The drifters work just as hard, but their effort is scattered. They start projects. They never finish. They jump from one interest to another. They make progress in random directions that don't add up to meaningful achievement. All that energy and nothing substantial to show for it. Think about the cost of drifting without priorities. You spend years in jobs that don't develop you professionally because you never prioritized career growth. You end up out of shape in your 40s because you never made physical health a real priority. You have shallow relationships because you never prioritized deep connection. You're broke in your 50s because you never made financial security a priority. Every area of life that you fail to prioritize stays mediocre or gets worse. You don't drift into success. You only drift into regret. Planning your priorities is also about being honest with yourself about trade-offs. You cannot prioritize everything. You have limited time and energy. Choosing to prioritize one thing means other things get less attention. This is hard for people to accept, but it is reality. The parent who prioritizes being present for their kids might advance slower in their career. The entrepreneur who prioritizes building their business might sacrifice some social life. The athlete who prioritizes training might have less time for hobbies. These trade-offs are not failures. They're the necessary cost of achieving something meaningful. The failure is pretending you don't have to choose and ending up with nothing because you tried to do everything. Let me give you one more framework that helps with priority planning. At the end of each week, review how you actually spent your time. Look at your calendar. Look at where your energy went. Then compare that to what you said your priorities were at the beginning of the week. The gap between what you planned and what you did reveals where you are failing to protect your priorities. Maybe you planned to work on your business 3 hours, but only managed 30 minutes. Why? What took priority over your stated priority? Was it truly important or just urgent and easier? This honest assessment helps you get better at actually living according to your priorities, instead of just talking about them. Your priorities are the foundation of a purposeful life. Without them, you are just busy. With them, you are building something meaningful. The next 30 years will pass whether you plan your priorities or not. The difference is whether those years add up to a life of significance or just a long series of days that didn't matter. Stop drifting. Stop reacting. Stop letting other people's priorities consume your time. Sit down today and identify what actually deserves your focus. Write it down. Schedule time for it. Protect it fiercely. And watch how different your life becomes when you finally start living with intention instead of just existing day to day. Number 8, decide who you'll become in the coming decades. You are not a fixed entity walking through life unchanging and permanent. You are constantly evolving, whether you direct that evolution or not. And the person you'll be 30 years from now will be unrecognizable compared to your current self. The only question is whether you'll consciously decide who that future person becomes, or whether you'll let circumstances and chance shape you into someone you never intended to be. Most people sleepwalk through their own transformation. They wake up decades later and don't recognize the person staring back at them in the mirror. They wonder how they became so cynical or so bitter or so distant from their younger dreams. The answer is simple. They never decided who they wanted to become, so life decided for them. Here's what I need you to grasp about personal transformation. Every experience you have changes you in some way. Every book you read rewires your thinking. Every conversation you engage in shifts your perspective slightly. Every challenge you face either strengthens you or weakens you, depending on how you respond. These changes happen, whether you're aware of them or not. Your brain is constantly updating its models of the world based on new information. Your beliefs are constantly being reinforced or challenged by what you encounter. Your character is being shaped by the choices you make every single day. If you are not deliberately guiding this process, you are allowing random inputs to determine your output. Think about the different versions of yourself that are possible 30 years from now. There is the version who stayed curious and kept learning and grew into a wise and capable person who others seek out for guidance. There is the version who stopped growing and became stagnant and bitter about how life turned out. There is the version who took risks and built something meaningful, even if it meant facing failure along the way. There is the version who played it safe and ended up with a life of quiet regret. All of these possible futures exist right now as potential paths. Which one you walk down depends entirely on the decisions you make starting today about who you are committed to becoming. Let me break down what it actually means to decide who you'll become. It starts with identifying the qualities and characteristics you want to develop. Do you want to be someone who stays calm under pressure? Do you want to be known for your integrity and keeping your word? Do you want to be the person who lifts others up instead of tearing them down? Do you want to be creative and innovative in how you solve problems? Do you want to be physically strong and healthy well into your later years? These aren't abstract wishes. These are active choices about which aspects of your character you are going to cultivate through deliberate practice. Most people have never seriously considered this question. They have vague ideas about wanting to be successful or happy or respected, but they've never defined what those words actually mean in terms of specific traits and behaviors. Success for one person might mean building a business empire. For another, it might mean raising children who contribute positively to the world. For someone else, it might mean mastering a craft or skill to the highest level. You can't become someone you haven't defined. You need clarity on exactly which version of yourself you are working toward. Once you know who you want to become, the next step is understanding the gap between your current self and your desired future self. This requires brutal honesty. You have to look at where you are right now without making excuses or blaming circumstances. Maybe you want to be disciplined, but currently you struggle to follow through on commitments. Maybe you want to be generous, but right now you are focused primarily on your own needs. Maybe you want to be knowledgeable, but you haven't read a meaningful book in years. Identifying these gaps isn't about beating yourself up. It is about creating a roadmap for growth. You can't improve what you won't acknowledge. Here is something critical about becoming a different person. You can't think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way into it. Your beliefs about yourself are formed by observing your own behavior. If you consistently do things that disciplined people do, you'll start believing you are a disciplined person. If you consistently do things that generous people do, you'll internalize an identity as a generous person. Your actions create evidence that shapes your self-concept. This is why affirmations and positive thinking alone don't work. You need behavioral proof that supports the identity you are trying to build. Let me give you a practical framework for this transformation. Pick one characteristic you want to develop and identify the smallest possible action that demonstrates that trait. If you want to become more disciplined, start by making your bed every morning without fail. If you want to become more grateful, write down 3 things you appreciate before you go to sleep each night. If you want to become healthier, do 10 push-ups every day. But remember, you are not trying to achieve a specific outcome. You are trying to become a specific type of person. Every time you do that small action, you are casting a vote for the identity you want to build. The transformation happens gradually through thousands of these small votes. Each time you do the thing your future self would do, you reinforce that identity a little bit more. Over months and years, these repeated actions fundamentally change who you are. You don't have to force yourself to be disciplined anymore, because discipline is now part of your core identity. You don't have to remind yourself to be grateful, because gratitude has become your natural default. This is how you actually become a different person, not through dramatic one-time decisions, but through consistent small choices that align with who you are committed to becoming. Now let's address the obstacles that will try to stop your transformation. The biggest one is your current environment and social circle. If everyone around you is content with mediocrity, they'll unconsciously pull you back down when you try to rise above it. They'll make jokes about your new habits. They'll invite you to activities that conflict with your growth. They'll question why you are changing. This isn't because they're bad people. It is because your growth makes them uncomfortable about their own lack of progress. You have to be strong enough to protect your transformation, even when the people around you don't understand it or support it. Your past self will also fight against your future self. You have years of neural pathways and behavioral patterns that want to keep operating the way they always have. Change requires energy and effort. Your brain prefers the familiar, even when the familiar isn't serving you well. Every time you choose the new behavior over the old pattern, you are weakening the old pathway and strengthening the new one. Eventually, the new way becomes the path of least resistance, but you have to push through the initial discomfort period, where everything feels awkward and unnatural. Here is what I've observed about people who successfully transform themselves. They have a clear picture of who they're becoming, and they review that picture regularly. They don't just decide once and forget about it. They revisit their desired identity often enough that it stays fresh in their mind. They ask themselves regularly whether their current actions align with their future self. They make corrections when they notice themselves drifting off course. They treat their personal development as seriously as any other important project. Think about the specific skills and knowledge your future self will need to have. If you want to be a leader 30 years from now, you need to start developing leadership skills today. Read books about leadership. Study great leaders. Put yourself in positions where you can practice leading, even in small ways. If you want to be financially independent, you need to understand money and investing. Start learning now. Make mistakes with small amounts while the stakes are low. Build your financial intelligence over time. Whatever your desired future requires, you need to start building those capabilities immediately. Your future self will also be shaped by the standards you hold yourself to right now. If you accept mediocre work from yourself today, you are training yourself to be a mediocre person. If you demand excellence even in small things, you are building a pattern of excellence that will serve you for decades. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Your standards in one area of life tend to spread to other areas. Hold yourself to high standards now, and your future self will naturally maintain those standards. Consider also the values you want to be known for 30 years from now. Do you want to be someone people can count on? Start keeping every promise you make now, no matter how small. Do you want to be someone who adds value to every interaction? Start looking for ways to help people now without expecting anything in return. Do you want to be someone who faces challenges with courage? Start doing things that scare you now, while they're still relatively small fears. Your values aren't what you say. They're what you consistently demonstrate through your choices and actions. The person you become over the next 30 years will be the sum total of all the micro decisions you make between now and then. Every time you choose growth over comfort, every time you choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure, every time you choose to be the person you want to become, instead of staying the person you've always been, they compound. They create the trajectory that determines your destination. You have more control over who you become than you realize. But you have to exercise that control consciously and consistently. Decide right now who you are committed to becoming, and then start being that person in small ways today. Number 9, map your path while you still have time. Time is running out faster than you think, and most people don't realize it until half their life is already gone. You might feel like you have endless time ahead of you. You might think you can figure things out later. You might believe that someday when things settle down, you'll sit down and create a real plan for your life. But here is the truth that nobody wants to face. Someday never comes. Things never settle down. Life keeps getting busier and more complicated. And before you know it, 10 years have passed, and you're no closer to where you wanted to be because you never mapped out how to get there. Mapping your path isn't something you do when you have extra time. It is something you do now before time runs out and you are left wondering where all the years went. Every journey needs a map. You wouldn't drive across the country without knowing which roads to take. You wouldn't build a house without blueprints. You wouldn't start a business without some kind of plan. Yet most people are trying to build an entire life without any roadmap whatsoever. They're just winging it day by day, hoping things work out somehow. This approach might get you somewhere eventually, but it probably won't get you where you actually want to go. Without a map, you end up wherever the current takes you. With a map, you can navigate deliberately toward a destination you've chosen. Here is what mapping your path actually means in practical terms. It means sitting down and plotting out the major milestones you need to hit over the next 30 years. Not vague wishes like wanting to be happy or successful. Specific measurable achievements that you can track and work toward. By age 35, you want to have a certain amount saved. By age 40, you want to have developed certain skills.